You know, there are certain belts that you're not always a big fan of right off the bat. And this to me is one of those belts. This is one of my newest belts that's come in. This is an NWA Luger United States made by Pinfall Title Belts in conjunction with Mendoza Craft Leather. And I just got this belt in on Thursday. Let's take you to the unboxing. And as promised, here is the other one, the other unboxing. He told me over Messenger, he said, man, I packaged these belts up well. He ain't lying. He wrapped these things up like a brisket and butcher paper, which is better than under wrapping. You know what I mean? I would much rather have to fight with this bubble wrap than have a belt show up damaged, especially one that I spent anywhere north of $300 or $400 on. You know, this is. And I couldn't tell you what the price was, to be honest with you, because it was a package deal. Oh, I can smell the leather on this one. This one's been. Come on. Oh. There we go. Warm that up. Throw that over there with the other bubble wrap. And the Scotch Blue painter's tape, I'm work that off there. I think he got this idea. Well, I'm not going to take credit. I've sent him something, and I've used that green frog tape to secure the bubble wrap and the foam and stuff, so nothing happens to the contents that are in it. Let's see here. Come on. It's always the last one that fights you. There we go. All right. See what we got here. So the first belt, or the other belt, was made by Jagu. This one is made by Pinfall. So it is my first time seeing anything from Pinfall in front of me. And they do only Acid Etch HD. They do not mess with CNC. They do not mess with SD. Everything is Acid Etch HD. Of course, you know what you're going to get with Mendoza, man. The leather feels so nice. And there's your Mendoza Craft stamp over there. So, we will get into these more in depth in the review. But for right now, there's your unboxing. So, like I said in that unboxing, it was packaged really well. You know, I mentioned that he packed it tight like a brisket and butcher paper. And that's really true. You know, he took good care shipping the belt to me. So, let's get into this. I had an opportunity to buy this belt. Not this exact belt, obviously. Made by another maker. Made by Classic Shields about 2 years ago. And I declined because I wasn't a big fan of this belt at the time. Times change, tastes change. I feel differently about this belt now. And I think it'll go good next to my other U.S. belt. The one that's made by Arosha. The WCW 5-plate. So, I asked Antonio, I said, for us to do this, I said, how long do you think you would need? Like, if I submitted an order, how long can I expect for it to take to get my belt? He said, about 10 weeks. And I always figure when a leather guy gives you a timeline, add 2 weeks to it. Because you don't know if his leather's going to be on back order. You don't know if he's going to have something come up in his personal life. You don't know if the plates, if a guy made a bad batch of plates and now he has to remake the plates. You just don't know. So, whenever you're working with a maker or a leather guy or a restoner or whatever, just allow for extra time. If they tell you 10 weeks, figure 12. So, this belt came in May 15th. May 17th, I was at the SICW Fan Fest in St. Louis, and Nikita Koloff signed it. I will show the autograph off here in a second. So this belt is a Reggie Parks made belt. Originally, it's Reggie's artwork. And you can see that the eagle here on the main plate is very, very similar, if not identical, to the one that's at the top of the WWF tags. You can also tell that this section over here where, number one, you have a star. It's very reminiscent of an Intercontinental. This banner is very reminiscent of the Intercontinental. And so is the way that it has like a stacked look, how you have dividers here and it goes outwards. The difference being on the Intercontinental, obviously it squares off as this one rounds off. And this one, I actually like the tooling. Now, a lot of makers get this wrong and do clamshell tooling. That's not the way this belt's supposed to be. This belt was on TV from 1986 to 1991, and in that time, I've never seen a version of the belt by any of the people that held it. Magnum, there was Nikita Koloff, there was obviously the most famous person associated with this belt, Lex Luger. There's the American Dream, Dusty Rhodes, one of the Horsemen, Barry Windham, P.S. Michael Hayes from the Fabulous Freebirds, and old Stan Hansen. So, I've never seen any version of this belt with clamshell tooling. So now what we're going to do is get into specifics. I'm going to take a drink. This is a little Jim Beam Black with some 7-Up. You know, when I hear Cornette say that 7-Up and Sprite do have a very different taste, it's more apparent when you add whiskey to it. But let's dive into this. So first thing I want to draw your attention to, while I got it laid out like this, I'm going to take it off the phone holder to show you, is the curve. The curvature on this main plate is very tastefully done. I do like it. Any more of a curve, I probably wouldn't. And to be honest with you, if this were, if I had to do it all over again, I'd tell them to do slightly less of a curve, a little bit more shallow of a curve. But it's not overdone. You can get it up to about your wrist, or at least I can. Let me stretch this back over. There we go. All right. So, on our male snaps, we are 2x8 with some light snap box texturing. And there's a photo that I have of Lex Luger. Now, you got to remember, this belt debuts in 86. We already have the red NWA TV that has texturing in the snap boxes, and we already have the red logo Intercontinental that would debut in September of 85 with texturing in the snap boxes. So, Reggie was beginning to do that in the mid-80s. So, that is correct. You also have a beveled line that follows around the outer side plates. And we get to these textured patterns, I guess. And this is very tricky. You know, Antonio and I talked about this after the belt came in. He goes, neither strap was really easy to do. And what the challenge, I think, what he said on this one was the patterns in here. Because there's not a stencil for this. There's not a pattern for this. And he's got to freehand all this and make it all symmetrical on both sides of the belt. And then he's got to go in with some sort of beveling tool, I'm sure, and stamp this in. And then he noticed, and I agreed with him. I'll put up a photo of Lex Luger on your left-hand side of the screen here. You could see that these portions in here, they are textured. There's a texturing in here. It's not smooth like the rest of the strap, and I could feel that with my finger. I don't know what bit or stamp he used to do that, but kudos to him because that feels awesome. The paintwork on this looks very nice. I will get into some of the nitty-gritty. You know, I'm a detail guy, right? So I'm gonna find some things if they're there to be found. Same tooling over here. He did a fantastic job replicating this. You can see the magazine cover with Nikita and Dusty on it. He did a great job replicating the tooling. There's Nikita's autograph, Nikita Koloff, and he put a Bible verse. That took me a while to figure out what that was. But I will put the Bible verse up there because I was unfamiliar with it. I went to Catholic school too. You think I would know that. But there is some more texturing. And there went my notepad. Pause. All right, it's back. Okay. So, he asked me which logo I wanted, and I went with the other one on the Missouri. So he does that one that's on the Missouri. He does this one that's on this one on this belt, and then he does the signature. But he lovingly calls it the tramp stamp. Come on, dude, call it something. Champ stamp. There you go. But call it whatever you want. I'm just giving him shit. But there's your black backing. I will feature the backing here in a second when I flip the belt over. But I mentioned some minor flaws. Now, we talked about this, and I said if it's too much trouble for you to get, don't worry about it. But there's supposed to be, over here, a little eagle that's stamped in between the snap box and the outer side plate. And I assume, since Reggie loves symmetry, he'd probably put one over here too. But don't quote me on that. I don't know if there's two or just one. But you can see the photo of Lex. I had to put it in black and white and turn like the brightness up and stuff and contrast for you guys to be able to see it clearly. But there's an eagle stamped into this leather on the strap. And there's another photo of Stan Hansen where it shows exactly the same thing. So, and that is just a small little detail. I'm willing to live without that. It's not a big deal to me. Some of the little paint flaws that I found. There are tiny little paint flaws, like, let's see here. Where did I find it? In between the Y and the H in heavyweight, there's a small, you guys see that? There's a little bit of paint missing. And then the stars, some of them look more crisp than others. Some of them have the bottoms with overlapping paint, and some of them are more clearly seen here. So that's just something I could fix that with a razor blade. I could scrape the paint off and fix that. But that's just something that I just want to keep an eye on, because he's a great belt maker from what I've seen. And, you know, just want to get better. That's all. But very, very nice. I find very few flaws with this belt. The other thing that I also found were two little spots here on this outer side plate where it looks like the plating has taken a hit from something, and my plating is gone. There's one, there's two. So I can zoom in on that for you. So I don't know what happened there, but it's not a big deal. I just figured I'd point that out. Maybe wrap the plates up a little better when you ship them, or whoever did it. I don't know. I don't care. It's not a deal breaker for me. I'm not going to sell this belt. I'm going to keep it. But it's just something I thought worth noting is, you know, make sure that you take care of the plates from the time you plate them until the time they're sent to the customer. Now, we're going to flip her over, and show you the backing. Like I said in the Missouri heavyweight review, he didn't have time to put these on his YouTube channel, right? He was racing against the clock to get me these belts for the Fan Fest, so he didn't have a chance to showcase these. I feel it's only right to do that for him. Black backing. These feel like Chicago screws, just like the ones from Jagu, or Jagu, however you want to say it. But very even, soft, dude, soft leather backing. It's like car interior type of material. Let's see, that's the male end, yeah. I still want to rub the autograph off, so before I touch this side of the belt, I want to make sure it's on the right end. But like he likes to say, no kinks, no warps, no bubbles. And the edges are nicely burnished. They're soft. They're sealed. You know, but by the time he conditions it and dyes it and everything and buffs it, I've seen him take like a shoe polish type of brush and buff the leather after he's put the dye on it. The man's craftsmanship here is phenomenal. So my camera's having a bit of a tough time focusing. I'm gonna flip it back over. So that is the NWA Luger belt. And like I said, this belt has grown on me. I initially was not a big fan. I've since become a fan of it. And this actually got a lot of attention at the fan fest from a lot of people. Like, I saw a little kid, he had to be all of about 8 years old, and I let him hold it, man, and he thought he had the world in the palm of his hand. He couldn't believe it. Instead of giving it back to me, he gave it to his dad for his dad to check it out. Um, but speaking of the fan fest, the next video is going to be kind of my haul of what I got signed and brought back from the St. Louis Fan Fest, the SICW Fan Fest. So that's going to be next week's video. Hopefully, after that, my third out of 4 belts that I have coming. The fourth one is just a re-leather. But the third belt is another belt that I got from a maker. And that belt is completed. He had completed it once and wasn't happy with the strap, so he put a new strap on it. Thus, I'm still waiting on the damn belt, but I've seen it on the new strap, and I like it even better. So, obviously, with Pakistan having the issue with India, shipping was kind of, there's kind of an impasse, kind of a standstill on shipping. Shipping has resumed out of Pakistan, from my understanding. So, that belt should be coming in no later than 10 days, I would think. And even then, the next week's video is going to be the Fan Fest autographed memorabilia haul that I got from SICW. And then the next week is going to be my newest belt, if it's here. So I'll see you guys on the next video.